They told you to find your passion, pick one thing, go deep, become the best at that one thing. And if you couldn't choose, if your mind wandered across disciplines, if you were curious about too many things, if you couldn't commit to a single path, you were labeled unfocused, uncommitted, destined for mediocrity. Look around, observe the people who followed that advice, the ones who chose early, specialized hard, went all in on a single skill. Many of them are trapped, fragile. One algorithm change, one industry shift, one technological disruption, and their entire identity collapses. They built their lives on a single pillar, and when that pillar cracks, they have nothing. You were told this was focus. It was actually domestication. 15 years ago, a researcher named David Epstein began studying elite performers across multiple domains: athletes, scientists, artists, entrepreneurs. He was looking for the common pattern. What he found shattered the cultural narrative completely. The most successful people in complex, unpredictable fields were not early specializers. They were samplers, experimenters, people who spent their formative years trying multiple things, building multiple skill sets, connecting dots across domains that seemed unrelated. Epstein documented this in painstaking detail. Nobel laureates were more likely to have artistic hobbies than less accomplished scientists. Elite athletes in technical sports averaged 3 sports in childhood before specializing. Breakthrough innovators pulled solutions from completely different fields. The pattern was unmistakable. Range beats focus in environments that require adaptability. But here's what they won't tell you. The reason society pushes early specialization isn't because it produces better outcomes. It's because it produces predictable, replaceable workers. The industrial system needs specialists, interchangeable parts, people who know their lane and stay in it, people who don't ask questions that span departments, people who don't see patterns that threaten established hierarchies. Your multiple interests aren't a bug, they're a feature, but only if you understand how to architect them correctly. Today, we're going to dismantle the myth of specialization and reveal the structure that people like you are actually built for. Something Epstein and others call the M-shaped human, multiple peaks of depth, connected by bridges of integration. Once you see this architecture, you cannot unsee it. You will recognize it in every person operating at the highest levels of complex fields, and you will understand why you felt like an outsider in a world that worships single-track minds. This is not about being a dilettante. This is about building a cognitive structure that specialists cannot compete with. There is no going back after this. The question is whether you're ready to stop apologizing for your range and start weaponizing it. You have been conditioned to believe that mastery requires singular focus from an early age, that Tiger Woods, who started golf at 18 months, represents the only path to excellence. The narrative is seductive because it's simple. Find it early, practice obsessively, dominate. But Tiger Woods is an exception in a very specific type of domain. Golf is what researchers call a kind learning environment. The rules never change. The feedback is immediate and accurate. The pattern is do X, get Y, every single time. In kind learning environments, early specialization works. 10,000 hours of deliberate practice in a stable system produces mastery. The problem? Almost nothing in modern life is a kind learning environment. Business is not a kind learning environment. Technology is not a kind learning environment. Politics, relationships, creative fields, strategic warfare, scientific research, none of these are kind learning environments. They are wicked learning environments. The rules change. The feedback is delayed or misleading. Patterns that worked yesterday stop working tomorrow. Experience can actually make you worse if you're learning the wrong lessons. David Epstein studied this distinction obsessively. He found that in wicked learning environments, early specialization becomes a liability. He wrote, "The more constrained and repetitive a challenge, the more likely it will be automated. Translation: specialists in narrow domains are building themselves into obsolescence. They are optimizing for a game that's disappearing. Look at Roger Federer. The greatest tennis player in history didn't specialize early. He played basketball, handball, skating, swimming, wrestling. He didn't focus exclusively on tennis until his mid-teens. His mother was a tennis coach and deliberately kept him sampling other sports. Why? Because athletic diversity builds general motor literacy. It creates a broader base of motor patterns to pull from. When Federer improvises a shot nobody has seen before, he's not just drawing from tennis, he's drawing from his entire athletic vocabulary. This is not an accident. This is architecture. The anxiety you feel about not having chosen yet, that's industrial programming. The system needs you to choose early so it can slot you into a predictable box: employee, consumer, specialist. When you resist that, when you maintain optionality, when you continue exploring, the system interprets it as failure. You're not progressing along the prescribed path. You're not accumulating credentials in a narrow lane. But the reality is, the people making real breakthroughs, solving novel problems, creating new markets, they're almost never pure specialists. They're pattern recognizers who've seen enough different domains to spot analogies that specialists miss. They have range. And in a world of accelerating change, range is becoming the ultimate asymmetric advantage. You need to understand what you're actually building when you explore multiple interests. You're not wasting time. You're conducting reconnaissance. You're building a library of mental models. You're training your brain to see structural similarities across superficially different domains. This is not a weakness. This is a weapon, but only if you wield it intentionally instead of apologizing for it. The world is moving away from specialists and towards something else entirely, something most people don't have a name for yet. The future doesn't belong to the T-shaped professional. You've probably heard that term: one vertical bar of deep expertise, one horizontal bar of broad knowledge. It was the ideal for decades. Go deep in one thing, know a little about adjacent fields. Hire a bunch of T-shaped people, and theoretically they can collaborate across disciplines. But that model is collapsing because T-shaped people still think from a single domain. They still see the world through one primary lens, and in complex, rapidly evolving systems, that single lens becomes a cage. What's replacing it? The M-shaped human. Multiple peaks of genuine depth, connected by intentional knowledge transfer. Not a generalist who knows a little about everything, not a specialist trapped in one silo, something entirely different. Picture it visually. 2 or 3 or 4 areas where you've gone genuinely deep, built real expertise, earned the right to have an opinion. But here's the critical part: those peaks are not isolated. You've built bridges between them. You've actively transferred frameworks from domain A to domain B. You've spotted patterns in field 1 that solve problems in field 3. You've created an integrated cognitive network that no single domain expert can replicate. David Epstein documented this pattern extensively. He found that Nobel Prize-winning scientists were significantly more likely to have serious hobbies in arts and crafts compared to their less accomplished peers. Not casual hobbies, serious engagement. Why would time wasted on art make you a better scientist? Because creativity in one domain builds pattern recognition capabilities that transfer to others. The physicist who understands musical composition sees wave functions differently. The biologist who paints sees cellular structures differently. The connections are real. This is called far transfer, the ability to take a concept from one domain and apply it in a domain that seems completely unrelated. Specialists are trained for near transfer, applying knowledge within their field, but far transfer is exponentially more valuable because it produces insights that look like magic to people trapped in single paradigms. Epstein tells the story of an online platform created to let scientists post problems they couldn't solve. Other scientists could attempt solutions for prize money. What happened? The problems were most likely to be solved by people whose expertise was at the periphery of the field, not at the center. The immunologists couldn't solve the immunology problems, but the physicists could, by applying frameworks from completely different domains. The outsiders won because they weren't constrained by field-specific assumptions. This is the M-shaped advantage. You're not an outsider everywhere. You're an insider in multiple domains, which means you see connections that pure specialists cannot see. You're fluent in multiple languages of thought, and in an economy increasingly defined by complex, interdisciplinary problems. That fluency is worth more than depth in a single dying specialty. But here's what nobody tells you about building this architecture. It requires you to tolerate enormous amounts of social judgment. Your specialist peers will call you unfocused. Your family will ask when you're going to settle down and pick something. Your resume will confuse HR algorithms designed to filter for linear career paths. You have to be okay with that, because the alternative is optimizing for a game that no longer exists. The M-shape is not about dabbling, it's about strategic depth in complementary domains. It's about building genuine expertise in 2 or 3 areas that create compounding advantage when combined. A programmer who deeply understands cognitive psychology, a marketer who's gone deep in behavioral economics and data science, a doctor who's built expertise in systems engineering. These are not hobbies. These are load-bearing pillars of a cognitive architecture designed for complexity. And the world is becoming more complex, not less. Let me tell you how your brain actually works when exposed to multiple domains. It starts building something that specialists don't have, a library of analogical reasoning. You see a problem in field A. Your brain doesn't just search for solutions within field A, it searches your entire network. It asks, have I seen a structurally similar problem somewhere else? And if you've only ever operated in one domain, the answer is always no. But if you've gone deep in 3 or 4 domains, suddenly your brain has options. It finds a solution from field C, translates it, and applies it to field A. To specialists, this looks like genius. To you, it's just pattern matching across a larger database. David Epstein calls this learning to learn. When you move between domains, you're forced to repeatedly extract deep principles from surface-level differences. You learn that the fundamental dynamics of supply and demand apply to economics, but also to personal attention, dating markets, and bacterial populations. You learn that the concept of leverage appears in physics, but also in persuasion, capital allocation, and military strategy. You build a collection of transferable principles that work across contexts. Specialists build efficiency within a context. You build adaptability across contexts. Efficiency beats adaptability in stable environments. Adaptability destroys efficiency when the environment shifts. Guess what kind of environment we're living in? Epstein documented a fascinating study of expert bridge players and expert tournament Scrabble players. Both groups had spent thousands of hours developing elite-level skills in their respective games. Researchers tested their general cognitive abilities. The bridge players showed elevated reasoning and problem-solving skills that transferred to other domains. The Scrabble players didn't. Why? Because bridge requires constant pattern recognition across changing situations. Scrabble didn't. This is the critical distinction. Not all expertise transfers. Some skills are domain-specific and will never leave that domain. Others train your brain in ways that compound across everything you do. You need to choose your depth areas based on their transfer potential, not just their economic value or social status. The mistake most people make when they have multiple interests is treating them as disconnected hobbies. They learn guitar, they study philosophy, they code, they lift weights, but they keep everything in separate boxes. They never build bridges. They never ask, what does my understanding of musical improvisation teach me about software architecture? They never connect the stress adaptation from lifting to the stress adaptation required in negotiations. The raw material is there, the integration isn't. Integration is what transforms multiple interests from a liability into a superpower. Without integration, you're just a dilettante. With integration, you're a synthesizing machine that sees solutions invisible to specialists. And here's the part that will make you uncomfortable. You cannot plan this in advance. You cannot map out which 3 domains to master and in what order, because the value of the M-shape comes from unexpected connections. If you could predict which connections would be valuable, so could everyone else, and the advantage disappears. You have to explore, sample, experiment, follow genuine curiosity even when it seems impractical. Build depth in areas that fascinate you, not just areas that seem strategic, because the magic happens when your brain makes connections you couldn't have predicted. When your understanding of evolutionary biology suddenly makes you better at marketing, when your experience in competitive gaming makes you better at negotiations, when your study of Stoic philosophy makes you better at system design. These connections only happen if you give yourself permission to explore what seems irrelevant, and that requires tolerating the anxiety of not knowing where it's leading. Most people cannot tolerate that anxiety, so they specialize early, achieve false certainty, and trap themselves. You're different. The question is whether you're going to embrace that or keep apologizing for it. Let's talk about the feeling that keeps you up at night. The anxiety of watching your peers commit to single paths while you are still exploring. They're getting job titles, building recognizable expertise, accumulating credentials in a linear fashion, and you're all over the place, learning things that don't fit on a resume, exploring fields that seem disconnected, still figuring it out. The cultural message is clear. You're behind, you're wasting time, you need to choose and commit. Every family gathering reinforces it, every LinkedIn scroll confirms it, every job application that asks for 5 years of specialized experience reminds you that you don't fit the template. Here's what nobody tells you. That anxiety is not a bug in your psychology, it's a feature of social control. The industrial economy needed predictable workers, people who would choose a lane early, stay in it, and produce consistent output without asking questions. The education system was designed to sort you into categories as quickly as possible. The career infrastructure was designed to reward linear progression within silos. But that system is dying, and it's dying precisely because the world has become too complex for specialists. David Epstein researched the concept of match quality, the degree of fit between an individual's abilities and interests and their career path. He found that people who specialized early often had poor match quality. They chose based on limited information, social pressure, or proximity. Then they were locked in by sunk costs. 10 years into a career they never really wanted, with skills that don't transfer, serving a role that increasingly feels like a cage. Compare that to people who sampled extensively, who tried multiple things, learned what they were actually good at versus what they thought they should be good at, discovered what genuinely held their attention versus what seemed prestigious. These people took longer to settle in. They looked undecided to outsiders, but when they finally committed to a direction, they had dramatically higher match quality. They were more satisfied, more effective, and more resilient when challenges emerged. The research is clear. Early commitment feels safe, but often produces misalignment. Extended exploration feels risky, but produces better outcomes. The anxiety you feel is not evidence that you're on the wrong path. It's evidence that you're on a path the industrial system wasn't designed for. Here's the strategic reality. Specialization made sense in a static world. If you knew the rules of the game wouldn't change for 30 years, it made sense to optimize ruthlessly for that specific game. Master one skill, become irreplaceable in one context, ride that single wave for your entire career. But we don't live in that world anymore. Industries appear and disappear within a decade. Technologies that took 20 years to reach 50 million users now do it in months. The half-life of skills is collapsing. The specialist who spent 15 years becoming the world's expert in a specific type of database architecture watches their expertise become obsolete when a new paradigm emerges. And because they put all their cognitive eggs in one basket, they have no transferability. They have to start over. You, with your multiple interests and your refusal to commit to a single narrow specialty, you're building redundancy. When one domain shifts, you have others. When one skill set becomes automated, you have others. You're not optimizing for the current game, you're building adaptability for multiple possible futures. That looks like lack of focus to people trapped in the old paradigm. It's actually strategic anti-fragility. But you have to own it. You have to stop apologizing for your range. Stop letting people make you feel like you're behind because you haven't committed to a single narrow expertise. Stop interpreting your curiosity as a weakness that needs to be fixed. The anxiety of not choosing is real. I'm not dismissing it, but it's imposed anxiety, not inherent anxiety. It comes from comparing yourself to an industrial template that no longer reflects reality. Once you understand that the template is obsolete, the anxiety loses its power. You stop asking, "Why haven't I chosen yet?" and start asking, "Which complementary depths should I build next?" That's a completely different question, and it leads to a completely different life. So, how do you actually build this? How do you transform multiple interests from a source of shame into a strategic architecture? Because knowing you're built for the M shape changes nothing if you don't execute intentionally. First, stop thinking in terms of choosing your passion. That entire framework is poisonous. Passion is not discovered, it's developed, and it's not singular, it's multiple. You don't have a hidden single purpose that you need to unearth. You have multiple potential directions that will become passionate as you develop competence in them. The question is not, what am I passionate about? The question is, which combination of competencies creates the most strategic value when integrated? Start with 2 or 3 domains that seem genuinely interesting to you, not because they're prestigious, not because they seem practical, not because someone told you they're important, because they capture your attention without external motivation. That internal pull is information. It's telling you something about your cognitive structure. Listen to it. Second, go genuinely deep in each domain, not surface level, not "I took a course and read 2 books" deep. Deep enough that you can have technical conversations with specialists, deep enough that you felt the frustration of complexity and pushed through it, deep enough that you've built real expertise that you could actually apply professionally if needed. The M shape is not about shallow familiarity with many things, it's about legitimate depth in multiple areas. How deep is deep enough? Epstein references the concept of desirable difficulty. You want to go deep enough in each domain that learning becomes hard, that you're wrestling with concepts that don't come easily, that you're building skills that require deliberate practice. If it feels easy and comfortable, you're not going deep enough. The difficulty is the signal that you're actually building transferable cognitive capabilities. Third, build explicit bridges. This is where most people with multiple interests fail. They develop isolated pockets of expertise, but never connect them. You must actively practice translating concepts from domain A into domain B. Write down the analogies. Ask yourself, what does my understanding of X teach me about Y? Create forcing functions for integration. If you study both behavioral economics and marketing, Challenge yourself to redesign an entire marketing campaign only using behavioral economics principles. If you study both programming and philosophy, force yourself to explain philosophical concepts through code. This is not natural. Your brain wants to keep things compartmentalized. You have to deliberately break down those walls. The connections won't appear automatically. You have to construct them. And the more you practice this, the more your brain learns to do it automatically. You develop a meta skill, the ability to see structural patterns across surface-level differences. Fourth, embrace serial depth, not just parallel breadth. You don't have to master 3 domains simultaneously. You can go deep in one for 2 years, then shift to another for 2 years, then shift to a third. What matters is that over a decade, you've built multiple genuine peaks. Epstein calls this the dark horse path, people who zigged and zagged through different fields before finding a unique combination that worked. They looked unfocused in the short term. In the long term, they built capabilities nobody else had. Fifth, measure value by integration, not by single domain status. Stop asking, am I the best at X? And start asking, do I have a combination of capabilities that creates unique value? You will probably never be the #1 specialist in any single field. That's fine. You're not competing with specialists on their terms. You're creating a category of one. Give me a concrete example. There are thousands of programmers better than you at pure coding. There are thousands of marketers better than you at pure marketing. But how many people combine deep coding ability with deep marketing understanding, with deep psychological insight? That number drops to hundreds, maybe dozens. That combination creates value that pure specialists in any single domain cannot deliver. You're not competing with specialists on their terms. You're creating a category of one. Sixth, accept that your career path will not be linear. You will confuse recruiters. You will not fit into standard job descriptions. You will have to explain yourself more than specialists do. This is the price of the M shape. You cannot have the advantage of unique integration and also have the comfort of fitting standard templates. Choose one. The people who thrive with this architecture are the ones who either create their own platforms, entrepreneurship, consulting, creative work, or who find organizations sophisticated enough to value integration over specialization. Those organizations exist, but they're a minority. You're optimizing for a specific type of environment, not for all environments. Know that going in. Finally, build your M shape around long-term bets, not short-term trends. Don't choose domains because they're hot right now. Choose domains that represent fundamental human needs or deep structural patterns that will matter for decades. Psychology, systems thinking, persuasion, technology, strategy, health, economics. These are not fads. These are enduring domains with long half-lives. Build depth in areas that compound over time, not areas that will be obsolete in 5 years. You are not building a resume. You are building a cognitive architecture. That architecture will determine what problems you can see, what solutions you can generate, and what opportunities you can recognize. It is the most important thing you will construct in your lifetime. And most people never construct it intentionally. They let it happen by accident, or they let institutions construct it for them. You have the opportunity to build it deliberately, to choose your peaks, to connect them with intention, to become something that the industrial system never designed for, but that the complex future desperately needs. The question is whether you will seize that opportunity or keep apologizing for the very thing that makes you valuable. So, let's recap what you've seen. 5 truths that most people will live their entire lives without understanding. 1. Early specialization is industrial programming, not a law of nature. It produces replaceable workers in stable systems. We do not live in a stable system. 2. The M-shaped human, multiple peaks of depth connected by integration, represents the cognitive architecture built for complexity, not the generalist, not the specialist, something different entirely. 3. Pattern recognition across domains creates far transferability that specialists cannot replicate. This is not a soft skill, this is a strategic weapon in environments where novel problems emerge constantly. 4. The anxiety of not choosing is imposed by an obsolete system, not inherent to your psychology. Extended exploration produces higher match quality and greater adaptability than early commitment. 5. Building the M-shape requires intentional depth in complementary domains, explicit integration between those domains, and tolerance for social judgment from people optimized for a dying paradigm. You now have the map. Most people never see the map. They stumble through life thinking something is wrong with them because they don't fit the specialist template. They apologize for their curiosity. They force themselves into a single lane. They listen to the people who tell them to focus. They build a life optimized for a system that's collapsing. Or you can accept what you are, an integrator, a pattern recognizer, a cognitive architect built for complexity. Someone who sees connections that specialists miss because you've trained yourself to think across domains. That path is harder. You will be misunderstood. You will not fit templates. You will have to explain yourself repeatedly to people who fundamentally don't understand what you're building. Your career will look messy on paper. Your resume will confuse algorithms. Your family will worry about you. But you will be building something real. An integrated network of capabilities that creates unique value in a world that increasingly rewards uniqueness. You will be able to adapt when systems shift. You will see opportunities that specialists miss. You will solve problems that require integration, not just expertise. This is not motivational. This is structural. The economy is shifting from rewarding depth in stable domains to rewarding integration across dynamic domains. You can either fight against your nature to fit the old model, or you can weaponize your nature to dominate the new one. David Epstein spent years documenting this pattern. He found it everywhere, in science, in athletics, in business, in innovation. The people creating breakthroughs were not the ultra-specialists. They were the people who refused to specialize early, who maintained range, who built cognitive diversity, who learned to think in multiple languages and translate between them. You are one of those people. The only question is whether you're going to own it. Here's your warning. Once you commit to this path, you cannot go back. Once you start seeing the world through multiple frameworks, you cannot unsee the connections. Once you've tasted the power of far transfer, pure specialization will feel like a cage. You will watch your specialist peers trapped in narrowing lanes, and you will feel both gratitude that you escaped and frustration that they cannot see what you see. This is lonely. Integration is always lonelier than specialization. Specialists have tribes, clear identities, professional associations. You will be a category of one. You will spend more time explaining what you do than people who fit standard boxes. You will be harder to label, harder to place, harder to understand. But you will also be harder to replace. The world does not need another specialist doing what 10,000 others can do. The world needs people who can connect dots across domains that seem unrelated, who can spot solutions from field A and apply them to field B, who can speak multiple languages of thought and translate between them, who can adapt when systems shift because they never committed entirely to a single paradigm. That is what you're building, not a career, not a specialty, a cognitive architecture designed for a future that rewards integration over optimization. What I've shared today is just the surface. This is the level that's publicly acceptable to discuss. These are the truths you're allowed to know. But there are deeper truths about how to actually construct your M-shape, how to choose which domains to combine, how to extract transferable principles, how to build integration capabilities that compound exponentially, how to position yourself in markets that don't have categories for what you are yet. These truths we'll explore in future videos. Each video is a step deeper into the architecture of cognitive advantage in complex systems. If you're still here, you're not like the others. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next videos. Each one is a step up the ladder of transformation. Each one reveals something the majority won't understand. Leave a comment telling me which level of the M-shape you're currently at. Be honest, most won't be. Most people will watch this and change nothing. They'll nod along, they'll feel temporarily validated, and then they'll go back to apologizing for their range. They'll go back to forcing themselves into single lanes. They'll go back to the anxiety of not fitting the specialist template. You are not most people. The question is, will you act like it?